ready to start? Give Joe a moment. Anyway, Ganel. Okay. Okay, calling the meeting to start. Thank you, everybody, for attending Environment and Facilities meeting. Our Vice Chair has sent his apologies, and I'm Councillor Larson. Hi, nice to meet you in the audience. Nice to have some people here. Good. We have 2 or 3 short items on the agenda, and then we'll give you a chance to ask your questions in a moment. So we start with any apologies. I just mentioned Councillor Slade. Do we have other apologies?
We do. We have apologies from Councillor Monk and Councillor Towell.
Thank you. And
Councillor Creek is on his way.
Yes, exactly. So we've had that update. Thank you. So that's a short-term apology. Thank you. And interests, if any councillors have any declarations of interests and dispensation, our practice is that we'll raise those when we get to the agenda point and step out of the room if somebody needed to. So the minutes we have from the last Environment and Facilities Committee meeting on the 12th of November. Just a few more visitors. Great. And take that as read and confirm as accurate. Would anybody have any concern with approving that? Yes?
I'll propose.
You'll propose to approve, seconded by Councillor North. All in favour? You're going to abstain, right, but that's sufficient. Okay, thank you. And Councillor Creek has just arrived, and Kevin, Councillor Towell, right. Okay, great. Yes, sure, yeah, absolutely. In fact, I can move along if that's easier.
You're right here, Kevin.
I'll move along, Councillor Towell.
Sorry, I missed the presentation.
No, we haven't had a presentation. It's fine. Yeah. Please. Okay. Thank you. So Councillor Towell's now in attendance, that's noted, and our environment officer's just popped out. I think everything's okay. Helping someone in. Right, great, okay, good. So would anybody have any matters arising from the Environment Committee minutes from the 12th of November? None being raised, okay, great. So we are on to the next agenda item, which is the open session for electors of Newquay. So that gives you a chance, if you'd like to come down to the microphone and to let us know your question. And if it's best, we'll have to take it in our response and agenda point. But thank you for letting us know what you'd like to ask. Thanks.
So good evening, Madam Chairman and the rest of the councillors. I actually wrote in an email to the council, having been advised to come to this meeting, but unfortunately it couldn't be an agenda item. So I'll read what I wrote to the council, if that's all right with you. Okay, so this is regarding dog poo, which I know isn't Cornwall Council responsibility. Cornwall Council have actually introduced a dog fouling public spaces protection order for Cornwall. Part of it is to ensure that all areas of Cornwall have the same levels of enforcement for dog fouling. There's a campaign called We're Watching You as well. I don't know how much you all know of this in this room. So I would like to bring the problem of dog poo in and around Newquay to the attention of the committee. There have been many comments on social media, Facebook pages recently, particularly from people complaining about the amount of dog poo on Porth Beach. After a post on Porth Residents Association Facebook page encouraging dog walkers to pick up their dog poo, it seems by the amount of comments posted, this isn't just a Porth problem, but a whole town problem. It's definitely not fair on the owners who do pick up to be tarred with the same brush as those who don't. It's not just the mess, but the poo is a hazard to everybody. People step in it, etc. Children are most at risk, especially when dogs leave their business on the beach. This is dangerous as children can become very ill if in contact with infected faeces. Bagging up poo and leaving it in obscure places, even amongst the rocks, is just as bad as leaving it on the beach. The Newquay Voice covered this problem recently, realising we have a huge problem in Newquay, and I'm sure we're not the only town experiencing this. There are no dog wardens, so what do the town council propose to do about it? I understand no one wants the jobs which were advertised last year. And again, I know it's not town council problem. However, we live in an amazing place. Newquay's great. It's on the up, so I think. A lot of people agree with me. But we don't want it looking disgusting. We'd like to clear it up, get rid of the mess. And you only have to walk through the town, Fistral, Porth Island, Pentar Headland. People just don't care. Majority of them do, but there's a lot of people that don't care where their dogs do their business. So just some ideas. We have rangers, which has something to do with bid. Can we not we, you, and the rangers work together on this so that they have more awareness of dogs, dog poo, and what's happening on the beaches and around our town? More public awareness. It is actually against the law not to pick up after their dog. A publicity campaign regularly, education, bigger signs warning of fines at beaches, open spaces, e.g. Killercourt, Barrowfields, which is awful. Wardens stroke security cameras to actually catch these dog owners, fine them and name and shame them. I don't know how our cameras work. Do they see dog owners letting their dogs poo? A threat that if things don't improve, dogs will be banned from all beaches at all times. More bins on footpaths, beaches and open spaces. This can be a problem. This is an environmental issue impacting the whole of Newquay. Our beaches and surrounding areas are beautiful. We're so fortunate to live in such a stunning location. But one thing is letting us down: the dog owners who don't care about any of this. I'd like to finish by thanking all those dog owners who get it right and know how to keep the area clean from dog poo. They carry poo bags, pick up the poo, and most of all, watch where their dogs are when they do their business, unlike some people who just let their dogs off the lead, don't watch where they are, possibly because they are chatting on their phones or whatever. More awareness, and let's keep this town on the up and looking clean and tidy. Thank you.
Thank you. It sounds as though the question to us as well is also what might Newquay Town Council do? Thank you. Absolutely agree with the concern, especially we do have lots of children playing on the grass. It's fantastic. All of us love lying in the sun on the grass and things like that. So none of us want to end up in dog poo, and there's always more that can maybe be done. You quite rightly pointed out at the beginning that in a big picture, most of these spaces where this is happening are owned by Cornwall Council and managed by Cornwall Council. You did make some really helpful suggestions, I thought, though, as well, under the sort of public awareness banner about maybe some signs on Killercourt. So that is one space that Newquay Town Council owns and runs, and we could have a look into whether maybe we could have to think about where we would put them, I think, with our environment team, with Joe and the team, where it would work most appropriately. And Joe, maybe we look into whether it is much of an issue on, well, you're saying it is a bit of an issue on Killercourt, and whether we needed any separate dog poo bins or if that's feasible just with our collectors and things like that. So there's a few spots like that we own where we could maybe look into a bit of signage by Newquay Town Council. Then with regards to Cornwall Council, which is a lot more of the spaces in the town, I think it sounds like you're already raising it there to some extent, and it's been in the papers, so there's awareness. So I don't know whether it's worth us sending a letter to them, given that maybe they're already aware right now. But I'll let Councillor Creek, our mayor, wants to speak on this.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Larson, and thank you for bringing it to attention. And I did see the email come in, and as a result, had a conversation with our town clerk around what we can do in the interim. We are, as you quite rightly point out, having some issues recruiting for our enforcement officers. For one reason or another, doing our best to fill those roles. But I think what we can do, and you quite rightly point out that BID employ the services of some rangers through like an agency, and one of the options I did talk to the clerk about was in the interim period between now and when we managed to recruit to those roles, whether we could get some cover from the rangers that BID use to support the enforcement of in areas like Porth Beach, which I know is a problem around the schools, on the lanes around the schools. It's a big problem. I'm a governor up at Tranance, and it is a big problem. So I do think we can do that, and I think we'll talk. We can talk about that tonight in the appropriate section. And your suggestion of a wider comms piece is absolutely right, and we can certainly get our comms officer on that. But I think Councillor Larson has alluded to it there. I think collaboration with Cornwall Council, as painful as that sometimes is, to be quite frank, is what's needed here. And they are the main landowner in all of these spaces, including the beaches. So, but you're quite right. I mean, I was down at Porth. I lived 2 minutes from Porth Beach, and down there at the weekend, and was, mortified to see what I saw down there, particularly given all the waste bins that are available to people as well. So, yeah, absolutely. And thank you for coming in. Really do appreciate the question. And you are quite rightly raising something that is an issue for the wider population of New Keith. So thank you. Thank you, Councillor Larson.
Just to say, I'm not sure, did you contact the Cornwall councillors?
No, I think
yeah, that's okay. What I would do is I would send that letter to both of them, both Councillor Gardner and Councillor Monk. Neither of them here this evening. I'm not sure if they gave apologies, but hopefully they would have been able to answer. They are town councillors, but they're not here.
Who is, in fact, also a Cornwall councillor.
Thank you. First of all, I apologise for my slurs. Speech. I've had an operation, so I'm a little bit unclear. This situation hasn't been ignored by the town council. We are, as you know, setting up a service to enhance our enforcement, and we've had one or two obstacles in our way, but we will overcome those in the long term. This is rather a difficult nut to crack. You mentioned CCTV. We have looked at that. Unfortunately, there are legalities behind that, and any enforcement that comes as a result from cameras won't be enforceable. So it's a great idea, and we have looked at it, but it's not practical in the real world, unfortunately. So we've gone down the avenue we have done. We've still got some work to do, but we've just got to crack on and overcome the obstacles, because it's an important issue, and there's nothing worse than saying it lying about the town. Dog owners know they have to pick up. I don't think extra signage will solve the problem, because unfortunately they put those signs up there, but ignored. So I think the enforcement route is the one we have to go down, and with our new service in time, hopefully we can jointly work on education and a big stick as well. So you've got those two things side by side.
Thank you, Councillor Towell. You may.
I understand from the council, the town council, that the money that was put to one side or wherever it sits for wardens has now been reallocated somewhere else for this year. That's what I was told on the phone.
Not that we're aware, sorry, yeah. I think as you heard Councillor Creek, the Mayor say a moment ago there, in response to this being raised recently, given that unanticipated challenge in hiring, there's been some big efforts by the team to hire, and it's frustrating to everybody that we haven't been able to get that ranger on board yet. Councillor Creek is suggesting that maybe in the interim, while we still keep trying to hire the permanent, some of the increase that agency support in partnership, as you suggested, with BID. So that might be a short-term way to utilise the unspent, but I don't think we're not aware of it being allocated somewhere else. So, which is good news. And it sounds as though it's worth. Joe, does the idea of working with Sally and perhaps Councillor Creek and myself just running by some ideas for signs for Killer Court and a few other spaces? Because I don't think we don't actually have anything in particularly talking about this issue at the moment. Yeah, so we can progress that on email in the coming week or so. In the short term, just some A4s and maybe think about whether we then maybe do anything permanent, but at least sort of awareness building, as you said, for now. And what was the other point then? And then, Councillor Towell's quite rightly saying the sort of wider enforcement as well. I think you're right. The just signs is not going to solve it, but it's the both ways which you were pointing out. So working on the hiring and partnership in the meantime, and some comms in the short term, and see how that works for sort of enhancing them in the long term if need be. And Joe, can we maybe pick up a discussion later also about whether we needed any specific bins in our, and whether that's feasible or not, or we can loop back. So, and perhaps as a council, we can look at maybe trying to update through the media and what we're doing as well to kind of keep that awareness up. Councillor
Can I
North.
just say, I know you're talking about more bins, but these people aren't putting it in anyway, they're just leaving it or throwing it somewhere else. Each bin comes with a cost. So I
feasible,
think we need to be really
exactly.
very careful.
So we're
there are a lot of bins.
We're not really sure if we can do anything separate to. There are good bins, Councillor North is quite right. It's just whether people sort of, sometimes when you have that dog one, people kind of think, oh, that's where my dog things go. I'm playing with that idea. We may not have the budget to do that, but we'll do our best on.
Thank you. Not a member of the committee, but I throw in comments every now and then. Yeah, I think it'd be worth contacting public health and getting a message out, as well as vets. Well, I mean, I've got 2 dogs, and I do meticulously pick up, dog poop, and put it in the proper place. But I've had a discussion with the vet with the huge increase in dog ownership during lockdown and afterwards. And with the cost of living crisis, then basically what's happening is the people aren't vaccinating their dogs. So there's going to be a huge, the vets are noticing this, a huge increase in like distemper and dog animal diseases as well. So apart from like the human health side of things, dog owners do have a vested interest. They need to pick up the poo for their own dog's health. When I had my first dog in the 1980s with the Barrowfield, it was renowned for distemper. And we're fast heading back to that situation for 30 years ago from improper use. But I think we need to get some more welly messages out from public health, and I'm sure they'd be happy to liaise with that for a campaign.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, I work with public health on a day-to-day basis through my other job. So I'll pick that up with them personally, actually, and speak to the Deputy Director and see if there's anything we can't get out there, actually.
Al?
Another thing is that due to the changes in the West contract,
Changes in the waste contract. Okay.
dog owners are now encouraged to put their waste into the normal
Yeah, that's what I was meaning.
waste litter bins as
Yeah.
well. I think this is not always understood, but normal bins are perfectly adequate as well.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe that's just. So, do we have anybody else from the public who would like to speak? Okay. Sorry, our chairs are a bit low there. Bit of a difficult one. Very low chair, I'm sorry.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Ignacio. I came from Spain. I am a chef. I try to point to a place here in Newquay by the train station to open well, first of all, if I am not properly understood, I'm happy to repeat myself. I point to a place in the train station to open a food truck over there to give a little bit of light to that place that looks always a little bit sad and lonely. I'm thankful for you to allow me to express my needs and for the people who is answer my emails. But I would love to know when the interest of expression will happen, when I will kind of be able to place a time or to understand when I will actually be able to start working. And also if in some way I can help to make that expression of interest go faster and obviously help myself in my situation, I will appreciate the things to speed up a little bit and to get a bit easier for me.
Thank you. Okay. So you're asking about the area in the train station in Newquay, and you're interested to open a food truck there. So just so everybody understands, the Network Rail own a lot of the land, but the new area with the new toilets there, that small piece of land is owned by Newquay Town Council, and we have just had it, the toilets installed by this hardworking team in the past 9 months, and they've started some work on planters and things, but we also are keen to see that beautified for everybody in Newquay and all the visitors even more. So you're asking appropriately about an expression of interest. We had this raised in our meeting about 2 months ago, and the committee asked our deputy clerk to look into areas for potential business, which he's done a great job on. And in this meeting, we will be clarifying that probable go-ahead to open up for tender, as you're saying, so that it's not just you, it's a fair application, as you're alluding, for anyone. And so do we need to move that up on the agenda now? And shall I just check, is there anyone else who wanted to speak from the audience today? Okay, thank you. Joe, do we need to move? Was that agenda?
It's up to yourselves as committee. I'm just conscious there was a written question as well.
I see. The separate
before we close this agenda
dog
item down.
poo one? Which one was the written question? There's a dog poo one here. Is that's separate to this, is it? Oh, I see. Okay, sorry, I thought they were the same. Okay, so we'll try to move that up on the next point in the agenda, but we just need to go through this question on this other issue first, and then we'll loop back in the next few minutes to answer your question. But I think we all understand what you're suggesting, and it's on the agenda of this committee, and we're keen to give a bit more clarity to you in the next 20 minutes or so. Thank you. Okay. So next point to discuss is that there's a letter in the councillors' packs which relates to the discussion surrounding dog poo enforcement and town rages. Someone anonymously is asking if all town council members respect and appreciate the work of rangers and all other enforcement officers across Newquay town who regularly have to deal with openly hostile people when carrying out their enforcement activities, such as when issuing advice or fines for littering and illegal parking, whilst potentially putting themselves at risk for what might be considered a relatively trivial matter, whilst also noting that these rules only exist because some people in the local community think that the laws or rules don't apply to them and that they are privileged and entitled to do what they want regardless of the impact to others. So the question started with, they'd like to ask if all town council members respect and appreciate the work of rangers and all other enforcement officers, and absolutely we do. We think it's a really important role. It takes a lot for someone to get out and be courageous and walk up to people and engage them around breaking of the law and bylaws and rules and things. And so of course we absolutely respect the work of any rangers, and it's a bit, and we actually don't, as you just heard in the last agenda point, don't have particularly many ourselves at the moment. It's more the Cornwall Council who run more of the spaces across Newquay. And if anybody's had sort of hostile situations, or any rangers have, then we're very sorry to hear that. But certainly, if anybody needs clarity that this town council respect the work of rangers, we absolutely do. Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this point? No. Okay. Yeah, I think that's probably a unanimous agreement.
Why don't we just simply put that to a motion that we agree with the sentence?
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Brooke.
That's it will be unanimous.
So you proposed that. Would anybody like to second that? Seconded. Great. Thank you, Councillor Towell. So we're just all a motion that we all absolutely support the good work of town rangers and do hope that they're kept safe and respected. Thank you. Thanks for alerting us to that, Joe. Okay, so does that take us to being able to move up the agenda, the point which is tenancy? Is that 9A? So we're moving...
It's 11B, Chair.
Oh, sorry. Okay. So under 11B. Yes, sorry. So we'll move to the facilities manager's report, which is 11 on the agenda, so that we can discuss this point about our facilities, including the railway station property. And I'm just going to go straight first to that point on this update, this fantastic, thorough update about the railway station, which is down on the... You just have to vote to move it up the agenda. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologise. I propose that we move it up the agenda. Thank you for seconding, Councillor North, and other councillors in favour. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so that's moved up the agenda. We're looking at question point 11, and I'm just trying to find the section in it on the railway.
Happy to give you a précis if you like,
okay.
Chair. So you, as a committee, tasked me to look at areas across this town council estate where there may be opportunities for income generation. So I started with the main three buildings. So the second floor of Marcus Hill. Unfortunately, at the time of this meeting, we are still, it's not unfortunately, but Cornwall Council are still occupiers of the second floor. So that's still in negotiation. They have given notice that they're going to vacate, but it hasn't actually happened as of yet. So I've highlighted space within that floor, which potentially doesn't need a huge amount of work, which could be either the leased or hot desks once they've left. So there's pros and cons to each option. Long-term lease is a bit more convoluted to some members here who have been through that process before. It's arguably high cost, but you do inevitably have a long-term tenant at the end of it, which is a little bit more secure. Hot desking, quicker to get in, quicker to establish. There's no legal costs. We have our own templates which we can use. But with all options within that, I've put in a SWOT analysis for your consideration. So really, I see there's two options. You could go either way. I'm not particularly precious about either. So that's kind of where we are with Marcus Hill. So you've got options, but at the moment we're restricted because we've got a sitting tenant. We have actually got interest in a long-term tenant for that floor as well. So that's quite interesting. Similar story with the library. There's not a massive amount of space there, I'll be honest. There was only one office that's not used by either the BID or the library staff. Probably more suited to hot desking, but it's a challenging environment because the library can be quite busy and it can be quite noisy, particularly when we've got children's groups. So hot desking might be a route. Again, it's an option for you to consider. And South Fistral, I've looked at. I think we've mooted before about concessions and markets, that kind of thing. I've not done a massive amount of research in terms of car boot sales. I think Melissa's mainly done that for me. So the detail around that is mainly from her. But again, it's got its pluses and minuses. There's no existing services on site. The barrier, obviously a point of contention, but it is a hurdle for anything that you want to do on that site. So yeah, it's also got restrictions in terms of the restrictions on the land title. So you can't actually have anything from July and August anyway. That was a condition placed by Cornwall Council.
Joe, sorry, do you mind
sorry.
me asking, could we move to the one on the railway and we'll come back to these others so
Sure,
that we can
yep,
sort of
absolutely.
discuss them one by
Yeah,
one?
that's coming next.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
So yeah, the railway station, there is space by the old toilet block. It's tarmacked. There's no services underneath, so there's no electric and water that could be tapped into. With that site, as I've intimated to the gentleman in the gallery and I've put in a report, it does come with its own challenges. It's not an easily accessible site. You've got an ANPR camera which covers vehicles coming into that site and leaving, and that's separately controlled by ASDA, so we have no control over that. You also have a row of parking bays adjacent to the site, so if you wanted to get onto that site from the car park, you would need some sort of arrangement with ASDA to either reserve those bays or come at a mutually
Yeah, I
convenient
think
time
someone
where
could just come at 4 in the morning or something if they wanted to.
I can't say
I
it's
mean,
not a
To
not a
me,
hurdle.
I think we just put that in a contract saying this contract does not offer you you need to sign saying that you acknowledge that we are not responsible for access to the site. I presume we could get a lawyer to write something along those lines. And, if that impacts your business, unfortunately, that's the grounds for the lease. That you have to acknowledge that is the nature, as you're quite rightly pointing out.
Very possible. You can go one of two ways. You can either try to internally deal with some of these hurdles ourselves before advertising it. I personally wouldn't have capacity to do that right now. I'm currently down a facilities manager at the moment, so I wouldn't have the time to do that. In the short term, you could go another route and advertise as is with all these known restrictions, and then it's ultimately up to the bidders to put in bids and be aware of that. So I did initially suggest a expression of interest phase, which was not necessarily committing you to a formal pop-up tender, but would give you an indication. It's similar to South Fistral. It would give you an indication of if there's actually any interest out there, because I don't necessarily see a lot of merit in putting a lot of time and resource, from not only a council perspective, from an officer perspective, into a formal pop-up tender if there's very limited interest. But you can go either way. It's up to yourselves as a committee, but Yeah, that's the general gist.
Context. Yeah, thank you. Okay. So if we just take this one, we've talked about it for a little while as a committee. It is a sort of underutilized space that you make a really great point about the access, but hopefully with a legal clause, we could overcome that. We don't know if there's wider interest. We do know there's one level of interest here in the room today, but whether there's other, you're quite right, and whether that's... And then the other point which this committee discussed in another meeting is that whilst we'd love to see the area beautified and more happening there, we have a note in the minutes from the other meeting that we don't want any business that competes directly with other local businesses right beside it. So the Salted Cafe just went in, and so therefore I would like to see a clause in it saying no hot drinks and hot food, because that's exactly what's being sold in the other business right there, whereas nobody's selling ice creams and hats and sunscreen and a few other things that we could suggest, or pizza or things that are not being sold there. Councillor Creek.
Yeah, thanks, Kate. I think you're probably getting too into the weeds of this one. I think at the moment, I think I would. I mean, I like the site as a pop-up site. Actually, I think it's a great site for it. I think, it's a large, open space that is not going to get utilised otherwise. Yes, we can put some planters in there, we can put some benches in there and make it look nicer, but ultimately it's still going to be a large expanse of tarmac that we can't really do anything with. So I like it as a pop-up space. I appreciate the challenges of getting on and off the space, although those aren't unsurmountable with ANPR cameras. I mean, look at Little Fistral, right? With campers and stuff, putting towels over their number plates to get on and off. But I mean, I'm certainly not advocating for that, but it happens. In terms of what you were saying about the legal side of it, I think you would put it out to tender as is, see what comes back, and go from there. But in the meantime, I would pick up a conversation, and I'm happy to have it with Topher at Sorted and just ask his opinion, because actually what I found of Topher is that he's a really strong advocate for small local businesses, and what I suspect he will say, as long as it's not in direct competition, i.e. we're not selling fried breakfasts and they're selling fried breakfast, maybe it's a taco van, I don't know, whatever it might be, then I suspect he might be open to that. So I'm happy to pick up a conversation with Topher on that one and feedback, but I like it as a pop-up space. Coming off of the train station there, I think it's a great shot.
I don't think anybody's disliked it as a pop-up space. Everybody loves it. I think it's easy enough to just put that wording in for now on not competing, or we could even just say we prefer that, and then we don't get held up by this checking in with other local businesses. Councillor Hannan.
Yeah, Chair, thanks. To move this on, I mean, there is a recommendation there on the report from the Deputy Clerk, and I would propose the recommendations put forward to consider the expression of interest phase rather than formal tender. And the feedback we'll get from that, we'll see interest, we'll see who's interested, and then we can formulate our own set of criteria to meet the demand. And hopefully we can get somebody on there, because I support it as well. So I propose the recommendation as put down by the Deputy Clerk.
On that, everybody in favour of that? Yes? Okay, so you've got to go ahead on. We're going to be getting the EOI. And sorry, Joe, are you able to give any sense of when that might be published for the gentleman here to then be able to make his application?
I would hazard probably about 4 to 6 weeks for the whole turnaround, because you really need to allow a decent amount of time.
Sorry, but when would he be able to apply to the expression of interest? Does that take 4 weeks?
No,
just to
that's the whole process.
Sure.
But as I explained to the gentleman before, we've never done this process before.
I see.
So
okay.
I'm just basing this on previous tender exercises that we've done in the past.
Got it.
In terms of how quickly we can get an expression of interest out there, possibly within this week or next week.
Next
but
week
I don't want
cool,
to make any guarantees.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm myself not around next week, so
okay.
I'd have to delegate that down to someone else.
I see. Thank you. So we've had some staff shuffles in the past few weeks, so just some people not available at the moment. So Joe's, our deputy clerk, is juggling quite a lot, and he did raise this to me before the meeting, but he'll be doing his best, and as he says, if he can get another staff member. So I think, and Joe, would someone on the team would drop this gentleman an email? Right, okay, and then hopefully within the next 10 days or so, fingers crossed is all we can say. And then you heard that 4 to 6 week turnaround on get a feel back on whether we're likely to go to a real tender. Thank you very much for coming and wanting to beautify the town. That's fantastic. And I think you heard kind of the types of things that the council would be interested to have on that site as well. Thank you. Okay. Joe, did you also have proposals on the South Fistral car park, a specific proposal there as well?
It was the exact same suggestion.
Same EOI,
Chair.
okay, great. And I guess just all I would say on that is, and does anybody have any concern with that, or is the committee happy to go ahead? Okay, so I propose that
I suppose I'd like to know where it's going to be sited. You know, there's not a lot in that little report. You're saying July, or it is a car park. We want to get as much money as we can from the car park. 55 by 3 metres. It's quite a few spaces. It is pretty rammed during the summer months. I know we're all on about pop-ups here, there and everywhere. They're all down Esplanade Road. You've got that Cafe Sea Spray just down the road. So I think we need a bit more of...
Had to get a table at Sea Spray.
You're not going to get a table at a pop-up, are you? You're going to be in the car.
No, I mean to just get a coffee, even just anything. Yeah, they get very busy. Yeah, so
I'm allowed to speak on residents' behalf. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, great.
And in truth, there isn't a lot of detail as to where that 5 by 3 would go. There's no running water up there. There's no electricity. So we wouldn't want a generator. They're all the things we need to be thinking of before we just blindly say, oh, let's put out
Make a great point, and we wouldn't want a generator there, Joe, if we can write that into the EOI and clarify that there isn't water and electricity. And I think I would suggest that the maximum size we're looking at is a horse box at the maximum in terms of size. And then that, to Councillor North, to your point on the space, then that means you're really only taking up one car park space if it's a maximum one horse box, shall we say. Councillor Creek.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, in terms of the list of assets that you've got here, in terms, and opportunities for revenue generation, Joe, I think it's a great list. I think that there are, there's some lower hanging fruit here in this particular site. In the the site at the railway station would be my initial read. I think there's also many opportunities. I think you've highlighted it for revenue from our toilet facilities and the advertising. I think the car park I'd almost leave as in terms of priorities. I'd probably, because I think that one will be more tricky with the height barriers. We don't want to have an impact on the income that we're bringing in from that car park. It's the only car park that we own in Newquay, and we've done a really good job of increasing the revenue year on year by making it the cheapest car park in town, reinvesting that money into our town, unlike the Cornwall Council car parks. And what I wouldn't want to see is for us to have an impact on the income, and then we'll have less money to spend on play parks and bits and pieces. So I think I would leave that to last, but completely agree. If we've got someone who's interested in a long-term lease for the second floor, then we should definitely explore that. I'm less concerned about renting out the office at the top of the library. I think that will come with more problems than good, to be honest. So second floor, toilets with advertising.
To take these to...
Well, we can take them on, but I'm just giving you my thoughts on all of them at once, and then you can choose to do with that as you wish. Ignore it if you'd like, and then leave the South Fistral car park for a minute, and the library. I would say, just my thoughts.
Lennon.
You can shout at me for being out of line here, but I'm getting very concerned because we're nearly halfway through our meeting. We've tackled 2 items and a public question time. The agenda's horrendous, and looking at the workload of the deputy clerk, he's not going to be able to tackle it. I think it's a great piece of work. I think we need to all take it away and look at each individual one. It needs more work, and we just don't have time tonight. We've really got to get through this agenda, Chair. I can't stay till 10.
So we've raised the, the railway station, we've decided, we've given you the go-ahead on that one. I don't think you've heard any particularly strong go-ahead feelings on the others. We're really glad that we've got a mapping of, what this, I think you pointed out some really good strengths and weaknesses there. I do think we could capture on others, but I'm just conscious of the workload, as Councillor Hannan's quite rightly pointing out. So on those grounds, I think you make a good point, Councillor Hannan, that this time, whilst I think we're all really keen to go ahead on revenue generation, absolutely, it's got to be something we can actually do. And just between this meeting and the next meeting, you're probably going to have your hands full just getting the railway station one. So if we just focus on that for now, and as Councillor Hannan suggested, we'll all have a good read of the others and maybe some discussions, because I think between us we have some different thoughts, and come back to the meeting and try to get through the other three quite fast in the next meeting. Thank you very much. And if you have any more to add to them, then let us know that for the other meeting as well. Thank you. Okay, so we'll close that agenda point then. Thank you. And shall we carry on the facilities update? Was there, sorry, there's a bit, you're quite right, Hannan, Councillor Hannan, it's rather long. It's fantastically long. And okay, so you'd rather we go back to point 6. I see. Okay, sorry. Because no. Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you. So we'll go back to Councillor to point 6, which is the Environment Services Manager report. Because then, I'm sorry. I will propose that we move back to point Newquay and Bloom, which is the 6. Can I have a seconder? Thank you. And all in favour? Thank you. And thank you, Sarah. For
right. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you've got January's and February's Newquay and Bloom reports on it, because the minutes I've got, I haven't got. They're not on there, but I think you do have them. From the January one, we were going to be putting in the GWR grant from Newquay and Bloom, but that went through Kieran, through the Newquay Town Council for that. So because Newquay and Bloom didn't quite really fit the criteria for the application. So £24,000 went in with from Newquay Town Council grant, working with Newquay and Bloom and the Cornish Historical Society, and I think an arts like Town Blister Arts for an arts incentive as well. So that shifted away from Newquay and Bloom, but did include them. What I was after though was putting in for the £600 for the judging and the entry fees and costs and hire and everything for the South West in Bloom entry, which because we need to know by the 1st of March. So I'm hoping that can be proposed and seconded, unless you've got any questions from that. So
this is for Newquay and Bloom to attend the Southwest in Bloom event, the costs which this committee council normally covers, and I believe we have a budget line for, and so I propose that we approve that. Would anybody like to second, or any questions? Sure.
This isn't for the summer portion of the tour and bits and pieces. This is just for the tickets to go to Rosemore and the sort of the beginning of the season conference. Is that right?
No.
I'm not right.
No, you're not right, Drew. So it is. So Newquay and Bloom are paying for their own tickets for attending for Rosemore. Joe and his team, you decided you didn't want to go this year, did you? Yeah, not this year. So this is for the judging, for the cost for the application, which is I think £155, and for the costs for running the round and the room hire and everything, and the judges, and everything, and the lunch. And so last year it was 500, but we've allowed in this year as well for maybe car hire, because with Barbara stepping down from chair and things, we weren't going to assume, so we put in car hire in that as well. So hopefully it will be less.
One technical question. Presumably this will come out of next year's budget, Joe, and not this year's budget, even if we approve it now, right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Second.
Okay, seconded. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you very
Can I
much,
just
Councillor
can I just
Thompson.
confirm on that? So I think the entry needs to be in by the. Oh, I'm not sure if it needs to be in the 1st of March. So normally you pay the invoice, I think, for the application.
I think we've got budget in either year, so.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just looking through February's one report as well. Has anybody got any questions on February's one? Sorry, yes, Drew.
Yes, I did have a question on, when I read it earlier, it was the Aethiopian, I always pronounce that wrong. Quite right. Hedge opposite will be cut, so you can see the sea, which sounds wonderful. Newquay Town Council is subcontracting this out as it's a steep slope. We're paying for someone to cut the hedge on a Cornwall Council piece of land.
I'm not sure. This is something to do with Shirley and Anne. So it should be a payment in kind, or would Matt pay in?
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
that's fine then. Okay.
But I did go and get the quote. I met the company. So it's reasonably cheap, well, inexpensive.
They need effective like tree surgeons to do it because they need climbing gear. They need to be fully qualified because the slopes don't sleep.
Could we just ask that once we do that, because we as town council are we funding that?
No, that's the town team that are funding.
Okay, just to make sure that ongoing, once it's done, that CC continue,
Yeah,
keep
it's a
it down?
one-off.
And the last time it was cut was about 4 years ago, just before I started. So it's around about 4 years it needs to. But
keep on top of it, they won't have to go to this extent.
by all means, speak to Cornwall Council. Yeah, Cornwall Council.
No, but that's
Yeah.
we. Town council then need to reinforce that either by a letter or an email to Cornwall Council that it's been done at this moment in time, but we're not going to fund it ongoing, because it isn't our piece of land. They won't give it to us. So, we shouldn't sort of keep maintaining their.
And Joe, Councillor North makes a great point. I think you can set reminders in your email for sort of in 6 or 12 months or whatever to send another email because they'll be busy with a million other things. And yeah, thank you.
I'd just say as well, at the end for the AGM for Newquay and Bloom is the 6th of March, and it's an open invitation to councillors if they wish to attend that. I won't be able to attend that because it coincides with the CAP meeting, so yeah. Nothing else?
Can we just say thank you to Babs for all she's done as the chair?
Yeah.
Congratulations to her new role.
Thank you to Councillor
She's still chair
Thompson.
at the moment. If not,
Yeah.
till the AGM. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, and right, thank you. Okay, thanks very much for that update, most appreciated. Oh, sorry, Joe. Yes?
It's just an update for councillors Hannan and Thompson. The drainage works are actually already commenced. They started today. Yes. So hopefully by the end of this week it'll be done.
So then do we then need to go back to you to
just liaise.
Yeah, we need to liaise with you as to have we got time and okay, yeah, I'll feed that back to Newquay and Bloom then. That's wonderful, thank you.
The next point on the agenda, we skip from 6 to 8. We don't have a 7. Oh, it's not showing up on mine. Okay, sorry. Sometimes Okay, so Concrete Waves Working Party report. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to give a verbal update on what I know. I know that the working party hasn't met for some time, but a couple of issues around the concrete waves. So one, I know we've had some issues with the lights, and I think we're on that, aren't we, in terms of the electrics on that? I'm sure Joe will give us an update on that in a sec. Second one, I did raise this with the clerk, is I understand from the community that there is a bit of an issue with sort of a vaping ring, which is running itself out of the Concrete Waves skate park. Apparently the police are aware, or so I'm told. I was chatting to a head teacher locally, which is obviously quite concerning, and some of the tactics that were at play, and particularly in some of the lanes behind Tretheris and between there and the skate park, quite concerning. I did raise it with Andy before he went on holiday. He probably hasn't had a chance to pick it up with you, but I wonder if you could pick it up with the police and with Charity at the CCTV team, because obviously someone brought it to me and said, this is horrible, this is happening at the skate park, and I'm saying, well, we didn't know anything about this, and it's our asset, so we probably should be aware, and probably another reason why it would be really good to get some enforcement boots on the ground ASAP. So that is, other than that, I think we've got some repairs to concrete waves.
So Brooke.
Just on the issue of vaping, I was at a meeting the other day where an interesting website called Vapeanon was introduced. Are we aware of Vapeanon? Okay, so it is essentially it's a community reporting service. So where if people are experienced or have experienced vaping that they believe to be either illegal or underage or anything, then they can use that. And so it is vapeanon.com. Anonymous reporting service.
Maybe if Sally could pop that on our socials. Yeah, thank you. Great.
Yeah, I've made a note of both points. In regards to the point around the floodlights, it is in both the facilities manager's report and Joe's report, but just to kind of remove it so you don't have to go into it again, we instructed the contractors to go out there to investigate it, and they've done a full investigation of the electrics. They seem to feel they've isolated the issue, so they've stabilised for now. But because the council concession is also wide into our own electric supply, we need to have further conversations with them to kind of bottom that out as well. So at the moment, I don't really want to speak too soon, but the situation's stabilised, but we need to do a bit more further investigation.
Just to follow on from that, I'm hopefully meeting the cafe tomorrow just to see if it's any issues connected to the power supply.
I believe we're into the Environment Services report. Joe, another fantastically full report here for us. I think, as Councillor Hannan's pointed out, there's quite a lot on the agenda. So are you able to raise to us any key points you need us to agree on and support you on? Because, as usual, there's some great updates for us, but we'll presume that people have had a read of that, and we'll just work through anything you need our help on.
So yeah, if anyone has any questions, please feel free to
ask. No, there's some good things in there. Thank you.
I'll start off on the hanging baskets. As you're aware, BID have pulled out of this year's funding for the baskets, and they're looking at potentially introducing bunting in town. Due to that, I would like to get a steer from committee and potentially delegated authority on reducing the location to the centre of town and to keep here Killicourt, Mount Wise and Chester Road if possible. I have got an indicative cost in the ballpark of around about 2k this year, which obviously is still fairly high. Actually, it's a maximum 2k this year. With that, that doesn't include the need to have to get a contractor in to put them up with a cherry picker, so it will all be done in-house. It'll reduce the hours as well for labour costs and reduce the need for watering as much.
Clarify that, 2,000 for the hanging baskets.
A spend of up to 2k delegated.
Yeah, okay. And then you said you do or we don't need a contractor to put them in?
We don't need a contractor.
We do not need. So it's 2k is the full.
It'll
up
be
to 2k.
Potentially a lot less. But
okay, but up to 2,000 as the potential cost. I don't have particularly. Sorry, Councillor.
Sorry, I'm confused now. So I know BID have pulled out. That's just unfortunate. I wasn't at that BID meeting, so I couldn't put my 10 pence thing because I think it's disappointing, if I'm honest. So just reiterate what you've just said. I heard Chester Road. I heard Mount Wise. I heard Marcus Hill. Just where are we going to put baskets then if BID are not putting any baskets in? Where are we going to have them?
So it'll still be in the centre of town between the two coffee shops on the galvanised post we installed a couple of years back. So there'll be 31 baskets in the main precinct.
Then you're looking at Chester Road?
Yeah, Chester Road. There'll be an additional 6 up at Chester Road, and here Mount Wise and the Killicourt will stay the same.
I've got to be honest, Chair. If I had a choice, I'd put more in town and have less. I wouldn't bother with Mount Wise and just have one or two around here. I'm just a bit. It's like we're looking after our own premises with hanging baskets and neglecting the town. So it's only my point of view, and I don't know how the rest of the committee feels. But I'd sooner have more in town and less on our buildings, because Mount Wise is not centre of town. Here we could just have one outside the TIC possibly, or two. And concentrate on town, but that's my view.
Thanks, Chair. I tend to agree with Councillor Hannon, actually. I think, although it's only 4 on the Mount Wise building, it probably doesn't have as much impact as those, in the centre of town. Although I'd like to see, still see some out the front of this building. I think that, this is the, the showcase, particularly for tourists. Just on the cost. I'm just bringing this to the to the forefront in the usual way that I do with these finances, is that whilst it's only 2k for the hanging baskets, I did a rough calculation on the time that we spent watering the hanging baskets last year. So the actual man hours alone came to somewhere between 4 and 5k. Then you've got the van, the maintenance of that, the diesel for the van. Obviously the 15,000 litres of water that we dragged around Newquay last year, and the environmental impact on that. So I think we just need to be, more open about and transparent about the actual cost of the hanging basket. That said, they looked lovely. I thought you did a really good job. I actually really loved the planters that we've added in the middle of town. I think I'd love to see more of that. Maybe some smaller ones, some sort of, some sort of square ones, cube ones. That would be nice in some of the other areas, maybe in those areas where the hanging baskets don't tend to survive as well because of the exposed nature of the position. But I think you guys did a great job with them last year, and although unfortunate that BID are obviously pulling their funding for 40, I think actually it's probably an opportunity for us to just have a look and go, well, let's focus on the areas of most impact, and if we can do some planters as well, that would be great. Thanks, Chair.
I'd just also say it's really disappointing that BID are not funding, but I guess there are a lot of small businesses under pressure at the moment. Some of us run small businesses and are under pressure, so I understand. But yes, we need to be very cost conscious. It's not just the 2,000; it's the wider 15,000 litres of water. On the point about there has been a strategic sort of phasing that our Environment Office has been working on to those planters and phase down the water wasting and labour intensive hanging baskets to planters, been testing them, see what they look like. They're going all right, and Joe and I have had discussions in recent months about how, Joe, you're working on a few more for this year to keep slowly rolling that out, and you can take into account what Councillor Creek just said. So Councillor Towell, thank you.
Thank you. I too agree with Councillor Hannon about the hanging baskets and Mount Wise. I think as a committee, it would be handy if we send a signal instead now of going in and saying so many here and so many there, that was just prioritise the public areas of the town, like Central and the Central High Street and Chester Road, and as a committee, so we will prioritise those areas.
Sounds like I'd like to propose that Joe, that we ask you to go ahead with your plan, but as suggested to, I think it's cut the Mount Wise, the 4 there, and it looks to basically go ahead with the rest of those public areas, as you just said. Thank you. So, sorry, quick question.
So thank you, Chair. The centre of town, we do have the high catenary wires to place baskets, so you can still have them up high and low. So you could potentially put up to, I can't remember the numbers, but double the amount in the centre of town if you really wanted to.
But I think Councillor Creek's making the point that yes, much as we love them, they're not just a hanging basket, they're a hanging basket that somebody has to come and water every other day. Yeah, and a lot of, all that diesel or whatever it is to, we're trying to do EVs and everything, but nevertheless, resources and money to do that. So I'm going to propose that we go with your proposal, just minus the 4 at Mount Wise. Thank you for clarifying that for us, though. I think that was helpful to know. But let's, and if we got any complaints or anything, then we could, the next council could revisit for next year and as you raise it again if that seems relevant in future. But I think we think your suggestion sounds good. So I propose that. Anybody seconding my motion? Yes, thank you, Councillor Creek. All in favour? Thank you. Okay, great. That you had, Joe, and you have another point about EV chargers. So you're asking, are we interested in installing EV chargers at South Bristol Car Park because there's a local company interested in fully funding them for a percentage of the profits, and you would work with our finance officer to advertise this opportunity for the contract and let that original company bid, is that right? Right, okay. Okay, so I'd like to propose that we go ahead, unless anybody has any questions on this.
I mean, I think what I'd want to know is there anything in it for us other than a free EV charger that's on our site that they're going to make a bundle of money out of?
Percentage of the profits.
We get a percentage. They'll look at the access and they'll look at the surface as well. So they'll do a whole survey of the site from what's feasible for the next 10 years. So if the chargers need to be upgraded to fast chargers over the next 10 years, they will look at that. So they take all ownership and maintenance of those machines.
Open an expression of interest, they propose, and then this committee gets to review those. Yeah, exactly. Okay. So
Can I just start? There's no electricity up there at the minute. There is, yes. There is? Yes. Where is the electricity on the site?
It's from the substation to the side, and it runs towards the power.
Okay.
The pay machine, cash machine.
Okay. And how many charges are they putting up there?
They have said you could potentially put up to 20, but that's excessive. So they'll do a feasibility and see what's actually achievable.
And are we tied in for the 10 years then, if they're talking about 10 years?
Yeah, let's get some more.
Go ahead on that, Joe, and to explore that. Sorry, the EOI stage, basically seconded by Councillor Creek. All in favour? Thank you. Great. Okay, thanks, Joe, for bringing that to us. We've been contacted about a Killicourt donation stamping stone currently stored from the Newquay Old Cornwall Society, and amazing. And so the request to us is that they would like it in a prime visible location and to Killicourt at no cost to us. Okay, this is a slightly tricky one. Joe, do you want to tell us a little bit more about that? Thank you.
To be honest, Chair, I don't know much about it. It happened when I was on holiday. I came back to this amazing email chain. It was originally going to go to the library, but it is fairly large and fairly heavy. So we kind of talked ourselves out of that. We do have an issue, a problem area on the Killicourt next to the bandstand. Bit of land is just completely ruined by footfall and dogs, and we can't plant it. It would be an ideal kind of asset to have down there. Prime location, historic, in keeping with other stone on the site and the ADIT, and that's essentially it.
Sorry, so they're going to give it to us? Yes. Are they? And have we got to go and pick it up, presumably?
Dairyland have offered to
drop it off
and
place site it in the right place
in location.
And we're going to use a historic stone as a bollard, essentially.
Essentially.
Right. Okay. Fine.
Thank you. I mean, historical. We don't have many other historical things.
Yeah, there will be an information board, a small little plaque saying what it is and its connection to Newquay and the mining industry.
Thank you.
We can.
And Joe, if we can just learn from, dare I say it, the surf statue situation, just double check that we wouldn't have any liabilities on that, needing to be kept at a certain standard or anything like that. If something happened to it, we have no liabilities. So I'm happy that you go ahead with that, Joe. And is everybody in favour of that? Any seconder, Hannon? Yes, thank you. Great. Thanks very much for raising that. I believe, Sarah, you're waiting here for is it the climate working group you wanted to speak to? Okay, thank you. The concrete waves one, is that the one you were? No. Players retrospective approval. Okay, thank you.
An amendment to the report because GNR's cancelled. If it could go straight to full council, it's just an amendment.
Okay, so we're proposing that we approve that and it goes to full council. Right. Okay, and that was a retrospective on the play park repairs, which we discussed in multiple meetings. Thank you. So yes, you've proposed that. I'm happy to second. All in favour? Thank you, everybody. Great, you've got your go ahead. Thank you. Great. Okay, so Sarah, were you wishing to speak to the?
Yeah,
great.
I don't. Has the report? Is that? Can people see that or
That's
not?
on item 10. I think we're on 9.
Oh, it is.
Don't have to wait for item 10. My apologies. I thought it was within 9. Yeah. Okay. Yes, I'm sorry. I just thought it was under environment, but no. I'm sorry. It's separate. Okay.
I feel bad now. Just a request to spend, I can't find the figure, for the digger hire for Train Creek allotments, just to level the site, get it up to the next stage of an internal survey, work out the quantities of, calculate plots and plot sizes, and then for me to be able to bring that to committee for the next step. So this is just a cost to finally get the site cleared, ready for the next stages.
Yes.
Yeah, the recommendation on the report is, out of 3 quotes, I believe, is to use APS at a cost of 1,880 to come out of the Community Projects Open Spaces budget, which has got 8,120 in. It looks like it's the best quote. We've used APS before. I'm happy to propose we go with the recommendation.
Councillor. Favour? Great, thank you. Great. Okay. So, Joe, thank you for the fantastic. Oh, you've got more. Sorry.
I do apologise. And my final item would be to continue to use Cornwall Council to empty the dog waste bins at South Fistral and Paul Wheel Gardens. South Fistral has actually gone down in value, however, Paul Wheel has gone up in value.
Councillor Creek.
Thank you. Just a quick one. I don't have an issue with that, but just while we're talking about the Polwell permaculture garden and the dog bin, it was placed in the middle of the site. And can we get it moved to the front of the site? Because I know that Tristan's having a real problem with dogs, running around and causing absolute chaos on the site.
Yes.
I think, and ultimately, you'd have the dog waste bin on the way in or the way out, wouldn't you? Generally speaking, not in the middle, I would have thought.
Sorry, Chair, it is in the start of the site. I installed it myself. So the entrance is here, the dog bin's to the left. The issue with the dog fouling up on there is it's an historic one. I was there with an old enforcement officer doing a site survey because we had issues with dog fouling. Whilst we was on site, we walked back to the main entrance and someone had allowed their dog to defecate on the main. So the bin has been there for over a year, 2 years, a year and a half. Yeah, and it's the people using the bins will always use them. It's those ones that, regardless of the bin being there, will not see it. It is well used, and it's essentially.
Yeah. Okay. So can you say what your proposal? I'm just catching up on that context. We had all these updates from Tristan and the Pole Wheel team, but the proposal you're suggesting was?
Is to continue using Cornwall Council to empty the waste at Paul Wheel and South Fistral Car Park.
Okay. you need us to approve that. I'm happy to approve that, but I do think we should also spend another moment on the pole wheel. So I propose that we, that we approve what you just asked for on the approving Cornwall Council to do the dog waste bins. Anybody seconding? Councillor Creek, all in favour? Thank you, great. And then just the wider question of pole wheel Tristan raised to us, who's voluntarily managing that site in recent weeks, the permaculture gardens for the community in Trinance, that has been increase in dog fouling. And we talked about, I think we said on email that we would look at maybe doing some more signage. Do you know, Joe, if you and Sally have had a chance? I realise you've got a lot going on in this report, sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We've previously put signage up there. We've been working closely with Tristan over the past 4 years, and we constantly put in signage. The dog signs just get ripped off and thrown in hedges, including, I believe, some of the CCTV signage we put up there and trial cams we've used in the past. But like Councillor Councillor Towell, my mind. We can't use that footage, and it's really hard to identify the type of people who are doing it. But we can,
as Councillor Towell
put
was
more
saying.
signage up there.
So, and the signage before, can we look at doing something a bit more sturdy? Is that something possible? Do you think we've got budget and time for that?
We can, yeah. A small A4 sign would be about £20, and it's riveted together, so it's quite hard to
A more difficult one to get removed. Okay, let's at least go with that. Okay, thank you. Councillor Hannan, sorry. No. Okay. No, okay. And sorry, Councillor Creek.
Thank you, Chair. Joe, it sounds to me from the emails that Tristan's been sending over that he's having a bit of a tough time up there. You know, we shouldn't forget that is our plot of land that, that Tristan's managing on our behalf, and it feels like we need to really put our arms around him and try and give him the support that he desperately needs up there. Not least of all, obviously, with the dog fouling, but also, some of the antisocial behaviour. And I think, we really need to see if we can't get the rangers and up there and, as let's get these rangers temporarily appointed through the agency tonight, and let's see what we can't do about getting some support up there. And I don't know whether your team have much call to go up to that area, and whether just a bit more presence on a bit more of a regular basis, just seeing someone with a town council
uniforms.
shirt and a uniform,
Yeah.
just, do you know what I mean? It just has that that impact that. And I'd love, for Tristan to be successful there, and I think we're going to need to help him a bit more to make that happen, unfortunately.
And the team, yes.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree. I'm up there most weeks, and the team pass by regularly. We do occasionally help them out doing some of the physical labour side, but we can definitely step up on maybe doing an extra few patrols, even if it's just passing by and walking through the site as a team.
That would be fantastic. He's also asked us again about the accessibility problem, which my understanding was, Joe, sorry, you're aware of this, which was the dropped curb, the fact that he needs a dropped curb. And I think you were saying it's not doable, but he was saying it's needed because of disabled people and others having issues. And somebody had a fall recently, had an injury.
It's not one I've been intimately involved with. The only thing I would say is there's drop curbs on either side of that site. So there is accessibility. It's just not direct accessibility onto the site. So you can access via drop curb along that stretch of road. In terms of getting a drop curb, it would be an application to Cornwall Council Highways, which we did with the Tren Creek allotments. It's not impossible, but it wouldn't necessarily stop someone from parking there either. So we, again, harking back to the Tren Creek allotments, that's exactly what the situation is. We've got a drop curb, it eases our vehicles onto site, but people can still just park in front of it because it's not enforceable. So that's the only challenge I'd say with that.
We're in a little bit of a really difficult place on this one, that we do want to see more safety, but it's sort of a highways question almost, and we have had Cornwall councillors on those emails, I think, but perhaps the best we can do is just raise it with them again. and just sort of make the case with Tristan and the team there. Okay, so let's try to pick that up on email, and you're away next week, but if any chance this week, you could start the email and we'll try to push that through because it is a real concern. There's the safety for people there. We don't want anybody else falling. And Joe, really fantastic if your team could get up there more often, and perhaps maybe just check in with Tristan if over the next, with spring coming over the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe each week there could be just one little thing that one of your team might be able to do with someone there if they didn't have anything to do there, so that sort of help them sort of feel like we're giving them a bit of support, and the community kind of see things happening. And actually, I think he did have a list of a few things that they need help with. And they're kind of struggling to engage with the community. A bit of a catch-22 that without him having the support, it's hard for him to have the resource to engage the community. And so if we can just kind of help them kind of kick that back up as we're going into spring, there's just so many points he was raising. And, they are tricky. We're not going to solve them all overnight, but at least we can do our best to, it is our land. And to this point of somebody setting a fire to a Christmas tree on the site and things is dangerous. We've got to sort of ramp it up for a while, and then you'll be busy in summer. So at least this time before summer. Yeah, thank you.
Can I just come in before Joe goes, just to have it recorded? A big thank you to the team who I think have blitzed 850 Christmas trees. They did an amazing job at South Fistral.
Yeah.
What I would recommend that next year, the railings you put round, I would double rail them, because there's lots of dogs peeing into those trees because they are left for some time. They don't go every day. I'm not saying that, but you've got our environment team picking them up. If you put double railings, then they won't be soiling the trees. I think it's important that we look after our staff.
Thank you for the fantastic work on the Christmas trees recycling there, and you're utilising that locally, I believe, across our sites, so that saves the council money as well, and saves lots of carbon footprints and all sorts. So it's a really fantastic initiative the team have done the past few months. Thank you. Okay, so thank you for the fantastic environment report, and I think that allows us to move on to Councillor Thompson, if you wanted to update on the...
Haven't you got the Killicourt tenancy agreement?
Oh, my apologies. Okay, sorry.
Because it's the one after that, so right, I'll wait. I'm here.
My apologies. Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay. Oh, goodness me. The Killicourt Town Clerk, you've brought a question to us here on Killicourt. Thank you.
Yeah. So,
sorry, in summary, I think this was the one where you're saying you're asking the committee if we could move to the team over the next few months, essentially. Okay.
There's a couple of things. So, the first thing the very first thing was just a roundup of the tenancies that we've had in over the last 2 years, and I think it's worth celebrating, because sometimes it can be quite negative, and I think it's actually worth celebrating that we don't actually have a lot of vacant units, and as you can see from the spreadsheet, it's looking pretty good. So the second point was around pop-up interest. So I was asked by the town clerk to put out or try to come up with a process for pop-up units for the Killicourt. I did my best at the time. I had a very short window of time to do it, but the approach I took was a tenancy at will arrangement, which is almost like a light touch lease, which has the almost the same terms and conditions as a lease, in that they still have to pay a service charge, they still have to pay rent, they still have to return to the unit back to its original condition, all that stuff, liable insurance, etc. The flexibility is around the termination, in that both parties can terminate at any time. So that was the only way I could see it working, really, from a legal perspective. So we advertised that. We had some interest, I'd say, over the past couple of months. I think there's only one actual proper application that's been put through. But the two councillors in front of me, Councillors North and Creek, work very closely with us in the office on this. And I think I just wanted a steer from you all in terms of, do you want to do a pop-up kind of tenancy for the Kill Courts? And if so, what charge do you want to lodge for those units? Because of the shortness of time, I only really had the rental valuation to go off. I didn't have time to come up with any other figures, so that's what we advertise it on. But if there's any other kind of opinions, I'd like you to kind of let me know.
Creek, thank you. Thank you,
Yeah,
Joe.
thanks,
Great.
Joe. Thanks, Chair. Just very quickly on the Killer Court tenancy numbers, I was really pleased to read them actually this afternoon. I think a quick calculation in this financial year, out of a possible 144 months worth of revenue from those units, we managed 135. That's pretty darn good. I mean, that just over 5%, you know, and you have to allow for people leaving and people coming. So well done to Joe, well done to Jacob, Molly, me before that, who I know is coming back soon, and Louise's team, and thank you to Councillor North, who's worked diligently with me on the interviews over the last couple of years. And I think we've cracked it, haven't we, with the Killer Court tenancies? And we did 2 this evening just before this meeting, 2 interviews. So so hopefully 2 of those vacancies will be not vacant as of March. So so well done everyone really on that. So that's brilliant news. On the short-term tenancy pop-up thing, my feeling is that I'm not sure that we absolutely need it right now, but I think it would be a useful tool to have in the box, particularly over the winter months when we know that some tenancies will come to an end and people will, tactically choose to exit their contract at a point when they know it's going to be quieter for a few months. And so having that in the toolbox over the winter months particularly would be useful. My feeling on it is that it should be a slightly higher fee than one would charge for long-term tenancy, because otherwise it just becomes too convenient to do pop-up tenancy versus a long-term tenancy. So we need to make it attractive to stay in there longer, I think. But I wouldn't be looking to charge anything extortionate. Just make it slightly more expensive, I think. I don't know what others think. Thank you.
Towell. Thank you, Councillor Creek.
It's great news that the existing units down there are being used, and it's fantastic. I do have a worry, though, about increasing the commercialisation of the site. I don't think the public will support that either. And that is a concern to me, and I just want to suppress that on the record going forward. That I am concerned about over commercialisation of the site.
Councillor Towell. I mean, if we look at the list here, they're all very small, local, tiny, what are called micro businesses, I think, mostly. So there's nothing big in commercial. I think the town's been aligned. I think a lot of people agree with your concern that we wouldn't want to see big brands and whatever in there. And Joe, I believe we have that as a criteria, that we prioritise smaller entrepreneurs and local businesses. Is that right? So that's the balance, and it's just balancing that with not leaving a premise empty and wasting. But yes, I believe there is already a criteria for local businesses. And Councillor North, sorry.
So can I just come in there? Part of us receiving that £500,000 coastal community grant, we were the only town in the whole of South West to get that £500,000, and part of that was that we had to create employment spaces, and that's what we've done with the 12 units. We've been really picky about when we've interviewed. It's not an interview, it's an informal chat, that we've tried to ensure that the businesses that we've brought in there don't compete with other businesses within the town, and they're all very niche. And if you go down there at the minute, the mix that we've got is pretty eclectic, and I think we've done really well as a council to get those people in there. So that commercialisation will always be there because that was part of the agreement when we got that £500,000 from the government.
Balance of it is about business. The buildings are already built; they're already there, and yet, as was said, it's about local hiring and local organising, local small entrepreneurs and micro firms and things like that.
Can I just come back on that? So, commercialisation to date, I understand why it's needed and I support it. However, I wouldn't want to see it increased too much. I support the units, I support what they're doing. I like the idea that they're niche and they're offering a different way forward down there. But that area I wouldn't want to see spoiled by over businessification.
Park for the community, ultimately. I think everybody would agree on that. Thank you. Okay, yeah. At the end of the day, that's the focus, is that it's a beautiful, open, green place based by the sea. So, Joe, you were alerting us to the utilisation, and then you also had a question, I believe, on, so you've had a response on the pop-ups, which is basically might not need it for the next few months, but glad it's there and have it as a back pocket for and to revisit if and when it is needed. And then I think you might have had a second recommendation that just over the next few months, well, let me finish my point, that given, there could be some changes in the next few months, to speed things up, that you and a colleague were able to do any of the reviews if there needed to be for any new applicants just over the next few months until the new council comes in and do whatever they do from June, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, this is something we're already looking at across the board with all of our processes. I mean, we can't be naive. There is going to be a change of administration, and I haven't asked either of you what your kind of aspirations are past that, but we can't be, we need to be alive to the fact that there is going to be potentially a limbo period between end of April, mid-May. And my only concern is we need some form of process in that period of time. If we get applications in and
May
want
or
to
whatever.
get tenants in, then I think we need something in place.
That's...
So this isn't us trying to take anything away from the two councillors in front of me, because you've done a fantastic job. But I just think there needs to be something in place, and the criteria that I've laid down was actually the criteria that we agreed as a council initially when we set up the site. So that's, I just want to make you aware of it. You can keep going as you're going, and we'll just deal with it as it comes, but I just thought I'd make you, I think it's a sensible recommendation given what we're coming to.
Creek, speak to it.
Thank you. Thanks, Joe. I think really pragmatic recommendation, and I think you're quite right that particularly during the period over April, May, June, potentially, I guess, it's good to have a backup, and it should probably be written into the scheme of delegation somewhere, I would have thought, more permanently, as to the ongoing operationalisation of the site. I suppose my thought on it is where I'm always up for setting a strategic direction here in the room, and then you guys going away and operationalising it. That said, where I'm going to probably disagree with myself is that actually over the last couple of years, I think the input from members on the hire, the sort of the recruitment of tenants has been quite useful. So I wouldn't cut the members' input out completely. I think having some a couple of members on that on the panel that meets with prospective tenants gives them the the real view of what's happened over the last few years, the good and the bad. Let's be honest, 60% of the conversation that we tend to have with the tenants, if we're being really honest, is that, some of the negatives that we've had, because I think it's absolutely right that we give them the full picture. But yeah, absolutely, in terms of the pragmatic short term, let's go with your recommendation and weave it into the scheme of delegation longer term, and but keep members involved in that process, I think.
But I would say, yeah, I mean, I 100% agree, because especially Council North, that site intimately. So I wouldn't want to lose that. I think coming into the new administration, that working party, whatever it is, and whoever's on it, it probably needs some terms and maybe even work in that criteria to at least give yourselves some, so there's more transparency and at least more protection for yourselves. So at least then you've got something that you're working towards, and that we can all kind of work on the same page. So I just feel it might just be, it just seemed like a sensible approach.
Recommendation for delegated authority to the Corporate Services Manager, Deputy Town Clerk and the Finance Officer to manage Killer Court tenancy applications and onboarding in line with the evaluation criteria. And then you're just sort of making a second point that when the new council comes in, as however they arrange things, that you'll do your best to sort of input and encourage that historical input into a working group, which is quite transparent and people kind of like. But with regards to the actual recommendations sitting in front of us, I'm happy to propose that. And any seconding by Councillor Creek, all in favour? Great. Thank you, Joe. Go ahead. Thanks very much for managing that, and to Councillor Norton Creek for and all those interviews recently.
Getting quick before
Start again. Yeah. I want to go home and watch Ted Lasso. Anyway.
Thompson, so much for your patience.
Right,
Please.
Climate Action Steering Group. We're not a working party; it's an independent steering group. So this has come down. Can everybody see the report that I sent? Because I on my iBabs, I haven't got any of this stuff. It's not come through on mine, so I'm not quite sure what you can see. Has anyone? If you've read it, has anyone got any questions?
There's actually one or two other councillors who aren't here who had most of the questions. So thank you very much for the updates.
I sense a.
But if it's gone out to committee, then they have received it.
I accept the decision of the committee. I've nothing further to add. My concerns were raised at that meeting when we launched it. I would have preferred it to have gone via a different route, that was all, using the financial officer and the clerk. I think that was the only recommendation we made at the last committee. Wasn't against it in principle, it was the direction rather than going straight to forming this this working party. I think Councillor Gardner and myself.
The minutes from the last meeting were a proposal that there was an update to full council, which
I think we just wanted a more indirect path to give it more scrutiny, I guess is the right word, before it got to where it is now. But the committee overturned that suggestion, and we are where we are. So
there's a committee right now, but there isn't actually a proposal yet in terms of a proposal for a bid for a grant right now. That's under development. And when it gets to the expression of interest stage, then my understanding is it will actually come to all of us to scrutinise, as you're saying. But none of us have seen it because there isn't one yet for us to review. My understanding is there's been an outreach to the town on what environmental issues people think are important, and a facilitation of that, and that's all there. Sort of, Councillor Thompson, thank you.
So this is a pre-lottery bid process. We're hoping to get the application in by the end of February. We're working out, we've taken out its community, we've got results back. It's a bit of a spiral of getting it, done the things. And then it goes to the lottery. We don't hear anything for a couple of months. It might not even get any further than that. So I think once if we do get the okay, then it will come back, and then, we go to committee. It's just not,
there would be no formal proposal made to the grant-making body without that having gone through either this committee and or full
No,
council.
that's
That was my discussion with our grants officer
okay.
about 3
right,
hours
okay.
ago.
Yeah, I'm just, there isn't, you're not, not differentiating between the pre-bid and then actually if we do get invited to do the bid. So you're saying, yeah, if we get invited to do the bid and we do the paperwork, then we'll be bringing it back to full committee. But at the moment, we've been meeting weekly to try and get this through for months now. And, it would be really nice to get it to a monthly meeting once we've got this application off.
Thank you very much, Councillor Thompson, and everybody serving on that committee and working with it. Councillor Hannan, to your point, just to summarise, a group of local residents volunteering their time to input on behalf of the local community what they would love to see worked on as environmental issues in the town, and then our grants officer and an actual consultant, because this particular bid requires that an application is informed by local voices rather than just councillors. It's very explicit on that. We wouldn't get it looked at if we'd all been driving it, so to speak. I'll let Councillor Creek speak and come back in just a second. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So just a couple of things. I think you are right in a way, but as Councillor Thompson says, this is a pre-application, not an actual grant application. And as of right now, there is no money on the table and nothing for us as a town council really to worry about in terms of scrutiny, because there is no money. But I think what we do need to recognise here tonight, that this isn't a Newquay Town Council initiative. This is a community initiative that's been set up and supported, through some of the work of our grant officer. And I think the thing that we need to recognise is that there are 8 members of our local community here in Newquay who have given up initially 3 days of their time to do some training before they could even get on this, this group to steer the future of Newquay. And then they've been giving several hours every week for the last several months. They are all volunteers, and they have given up significant amount of time to prepare this bid. And I'd personally like to thank them on behalf of the town for the work that they've done, and hope that the pre-application to it's the National Lottery, isn't it? Allows us to then go into a full application. At which point we will all be very excited to hear the full detail on the grant application and the ramifications therein. But before then, I think we're probably getting ahead of ourselves if we're worrying too much about a pre-application, to be honest. But thank you.
And there were some early "what is this all about" emails to full council last year. And this update again today from Councillor Thompson. And I think if you have further questions, you could also, like the detailed ones, you could check with Councillor Thompson and possibly our grants officer, Kieran, as well.
Thank you, Chair. It wasn't that. You seem to be spending a large amount of time trying to convince me that this is a great idea. I've never been against this idea. If you look at the previous minutes, all that happened last time was that a proposal was made to actually spend money, to release money from a budget to start this, this transition and to get this group working. And all that was proposed by Councillor Garden and seconded by me was that we felt that because it was a budget spend and it had only just come to this committee, we just wanted to see whether it could go to full council to include a presentation from the grants officer and the steering group. The motion failed. Job done. It went straight to where we are now. A budget was agreed and it's behind us. I don't need reassuring, and you don't need to, it's great. Let's crack on. That's all we proposed at the time. Thank you.
There will be more updates going forward, but there's not much to update on rather than what was said today right now, basically. Thank you very much to Councillor Thompson for the update and Councillor Hannan for your points there. And I believe the next point on our, we've done the facility manager's report, so the next point is the Duchy defibrillators. No, sorry.
No,
sorry.
There's some items within the facilities manager report. I'll try and keep it brief because I'm conscious of time. So a very quick good news story. The solar panels at Mount Wise have been installed with fingers crossed, final completion tomorrow. There's just some final bits they just need to tick off, some electrical components that need installing. But for all intents and purposes, it's done and it's installed. So yeah, that's some good news.
Hannon's helped on that, and a few others, and a few other councillors who are not here. Are we looking at maybe having a launch event where we just turn it on or something like that? Yeah.
As long as you do it before the 14th of March, Councillor Creed.
Okay. Do we have time? Okay. Got 1 month. You're away next week, so okay.
Yeah. So just a bit good news. Some other minor updates. We're recruiting for 2 seasonal staff for the summer. I say summer. It's always spring and summer. We've never successfully managed to recruit those roles, but we've historically always tried to recruit all year round part-time. So we're focusing on seasonal to see if that makes any difference. We've got plan Bs in the background if we have to use that budget for alternative ways of locking and cleaning toilets like we did last year. So we'll see how that goes. I'm facilitating the installation of the Porth water fountain. Similar, it's the same charity that helped us with the Kilcourt fountain. So Tina, that we work with quite well, she's going to be liaising with me on that.
My only point on that one was just slightly clearer signage. I absolutely love them. I met the lady. Yep. It's fantastic. I just didn't know it was there for about a year because it's sort of...
It's not installed... Oh, the Kilcourt one.
Yes, the little dolphin, okay, which you can refill your water bottles and everything. It's absolutely fantastic. It's a beautiful dolphin. So it'll be the same as that, as I understand.
It's exactly the same.
But if we can maybe put one of our signs behind so people actually kind of realise a bit faster what it is, because I think it's sort of dark grey or black and so on.
There's a, at the base, well not at the base, but there's a kind of waist-high sign.
It's not really
in front of it,
eye height, so you don't really
there's
see.
no other signage, so we can have a look at that.
Thank you.
So the first site visit by the installers is the 25th of this month. So following that, hopefully I'll have a timetable of when the install is going to be. But they, yeah.
I think that lady does it voluntarily, so just to thank her also for that.
I can't commit to having it
prevention
done before 14th of March, I'm afraid.
Well, what we could do, Joe, do you mind if can we get a few photos? Maybe, I don't know if Joe, your team might be able to, and Sally could post them on our socials, because there's a lot of interest in the town at preventing plastic waste in the ocean and things like that, and that really contributes to that. Thank you.
I'll keep you updated on the time frame, and if it does match up with any kind of PR that we can do cross committee, then we will. If not, we'll promote it in-house. So I'll try and skim through this. So the only real decisions I kind of want to steer on, really. So the following on from the decisions by email, Kilcourt has been commissioned, so that's kind of in progress now. I'm waiting the timescale, but the parts have been ordered, so I'm working with the contractor on that. 4th Street subsequently has now stopped operating, so the coin mechanism works fine. You can still access it and use it with a coin or cash, sorry, but the contactless system has failed. So the contactless system, I have to excuse all the waffle in my report, but essentially if you want to upgrade it and get it back functioning, it's £698 for the upgrades. And the upgrades essentially are to make them accessible on the 4 and 5G network, because the current ones only operate on 3G, and that's now, I don't know if it's been decommissioned, but they don't have access to that network. So the short-term and quickest and most cost-effective way of getting that toilet back onto contactless is to go with that upgrade. There are 3 options in my report, but personally I feel option 2 is probably your surefire bet to just get that unit back up and running. So that's my kind of first proposal, really.
Okay, all in favour of, yep, thanks Joe, great to get that.
Thank you very much. So further down, you'll have to appreciate some of this is facilities manager's work, some of it is mine, so you'll have to be a bit patient with me. But the long and short of it is, I circulated a list of recommendations to committee by email following the January's in-court meeting. You'll note items 1 to 6 are essentially retrospective approval for those email recommendations. So if you're happy, you could just take those in block if you're satisfied, just giving those retrospective approval. So that would be the lion's share of that.
Sorry. Right at the bottom. Okay, thank you. Right at the bottom of the entire facilities report. Right, got it. Yes, I see them. Yeah. So we've got the manhole cover. Yes, you did circulate these all on email. Right. So does anybody have any concerns with that? The water fountain, the contactless, the EV charger, and the Mount Wise front door?
So it's just 1 to 6 is the
Oh,
retrospective.
1 to 6
approval. Yeah.
is the retrospective. Thank you. Okay, the contactless, so no concerns there. All in favour? Sorry, you're proposing, seconded. All in favour? Thank you, Joe. Great.
Okay,
Then you've got number 7.
Yeah, so number 7, this is more just something I wanted to flag to your attention, really. So we have 3 EV charger units. There's essentially 2 pairs. You've got one at Marcus Hill, you've got one at Mount Wise. There's only one functioning charger now at Marcus Hill, and both sites are outside of warranty. So my only concern is the Mount Wise unit, which is the newer of the 2, failed over Christmas, and we had to get an emergency repair done to it. So I feel that the service is at slight risk because you've got essentially 3 chargers outside of warranty.
Yeah.
And you've got 2 EV chargers, 2 EV vans, which you want to keep operational.
Yes.
So I've looked at a couple of quotes for replacing essentially one of those sites, either Mount Wise or Marcus Hill. We're not precious which one. So it's a renewed unit with a renewed lifespan, renewed warranty, and at least it'll have some operational
And
stability.
do you know how much that emergency over Christmas
It's about
cost?
£400.
About 400. Okay. Thank you.
So we haven't got the budget for this year, so we would have to make do until April, until the new budget year kicks in. But I feel there's a risk there, and it was my job to kind of present you that risk. So you can just keep going as you are, but I've also got quotes and I identified a budget if you wanted to replace them.
That 2,500 is for the high-speed ones, would that be correct?
Yeah, it's a 22 kilowatt.
And actually, sorry, we didn't get the batteries at Mount Wise, so we can't run it off the solar panels, is that? We can't connect them up? Yeah.
That's correct, no, we can't, no.
Right, okay. But do you know if the EV chargers you're proposing could connect if we later had batteries there? If the council...
I haven't done that check, I'm afraid, Chair.
Okay. I think that would be my only catch on, which is something you could just check with them. Sorry, Councillor Creek? Right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, out of the 2 sites, given that the Mount Wise ones are the newer ones, it's probably worth just replacing the ones down here, and then we can cross that bridge when we come to it, when those ones fail in a couple of years' time, presumably. So I'm happy to propose that we go with your recommendation for item 7 on the Marcus Hill estate.
On that, all in favour? Okay, thank you, Joe, for catching that and the team. Yeah, great.
And the last one on the report, I apologise, I did try to explain this by email, but it became quite convoluted. Essentially, the external door is no more. It was lost to Storm Dara. So we have now only one door into the premises, which is the internal foyer door. So we've gone through various different options with this site. I've discussed this at length with various different councillors and officers. We suggested replacing the external door with something else, but the problem with that site is mainly due to the nature of it, in that, unfortunately, because of the usage, people aren't necessarily closing it, and it does have a tendency to just be left on a latch. So if you replace the external door, I think you're going to end up with the same situation, in that even if you replace one like for like, which I know isn't really what people want anyway, you could find yourself in the situation where the wind takes it again, because that's just how the wind kind of comes down that road. So
Quick question was, in that email exchange, my recollection was I thought it was 6,000 was the quote for a sliding door, And then we had some quotes for some opening doors that were cheaper.
So,
No, am I remembering it wrong?
so
Sorry.
essentially, what we've suggested internally is rather than replacing your external door, you just almost reconfigure your internal porch area to an external porch area, which doesn't need a lot in terms of decoration. I mean, the carpet just needs to be replaced with something anti-slip.
We don't need to do anything with the inner door. We're keeping it exactly the same way it is now.
No, so
we
that's what was part of this suggestion. So because it's now essentially exposed to the elements, you would need to change that internal door and almost change it into an external door.
Opening one or a sliding one?
My suggestion would be to keep cost down and just have it literally a standard manually
Opening one,
door.
and that 6,000 is not because it's the sliding, it's 6,000 because the cost of doing the porch and all that kind of thing, the whole,
I'd
no.
argue up to 6,000.
Right,
I don't
okay,
want to
okay.
spend 6,000. I think that's a ridiculous sum for what it is. But
Thanks.
the only quotes I've received for a replacement internal door to make it robust and weatherproof is around £2,000 to £3,000 for the door itself.
Counting in a bit more for the,
And then
whatever you-
counting in at least £1,000 for labour and materials
Yep.
for a maintenance operative to essentially redecorate that kind of porch
Yes,
area,
that
remove the
porch.
heater, box in some of that equipment. So that's why I've come to around kind of figure of 6,000 and an up to limit. I don't particularly want to go near that. I felt I had a reasonable support by email, but because there was so many kind of back and forth, I wasn't really comfortable pressing forward with it.
Great, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Joe. Okay, Councillor Creek, thanks.
Yeah, I'm going to start, as I often start when talking about the Milesworth Centre, by saying that I am an employee of a tenant of that building on the first floor. We are talking about the ground floor. I don't have any conflict there, I don't believe. So I'm just going to make that on the record, please. I think this is a straightforward plan. My only query on it is that are we not replicating the issue on the external porch now on the internal door by replacing what effectively was a domestic door on a commercial property, knowing that at commercial properties people probably don't treat them particularly well, and maybe they aren't as robust as they should be, being a domestic door.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. I think the difficulty with the external door is you couldn't really stick a reasonable door closer on it, which would have any force to close it shut, which you can do internally. The other thing is you wouldn't get the wind force which would affect that internal door like the external one would. So it just seemed to be the natural, logical solution to the problem. And I don't feel that we need to spend thousands and thousands on a brand new door. I think we just need something functional which does the job. It isn't, in my honest opinion.
Yeah, I was one of the ones that went backwards and forwards with you a little bit, mainly because I saw the amount and thought, what? But I get it. I mean, if you've got an external porch that's open, it lends a lot of shelter to whatever door you're then eventually coming to. And I think if we spend a reasonable amount on that external but now protected door, it should be a solution. I'm happy to propose the spend up to 6 with the hope that we'll get nowhere near that.
Yeah. Con that then, all in favour? Great, thank you so much, everyone. Oh, sorry, no, and Councillor Creek is abstaining for the record. Thank you. Yeah. Right, thank you. Okay, great. Joe, those were your main recommendations with it. Yep. O'clock, thank you. So I'll propose that. Oh, how much have we got there? Yeah, exactly. But I think minimum I'm allowed to propose is half an hour, I think. So I propose that we extend to 9:30, but hopefully we've finished by 15:15. Seconded, somebody, please. Yes, Councillor Creek is seconded, and we've all said in favour. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, great. So the Duchy defibrillators, the bleed kit subscription, and Joe was this. Thank you.
I mean, yeah, as per my report, I'm hoping this is just a very simple, a simple kind of recommendation. Essentially, we've got bleed kits which have been provided to us for free. They're in our defib cabinets. We can do our own visual checks, but I feel that the best person and the people to be best placed maintaining those units and checking those units are the people that actually manufactured and put them in. So my recommendation would be to proceed with the subscription of £96 for them to be externally maintained and externally managed.
And we would make sure that they do turn up and do that, I guess. Yeah, thank you. Just that's all I'd ask of that. Great. Okay, so I'm happy to propose that. And seconded anybody? Okay, great. All in favour? Thank you very much, Joe. Very efficient. Fantastic. And I'm sorry, my agenda jumps up and down all the time. So number 12, thank you very much, which is leapt away from me and is correspondence, the Bunting request match funding from BID, looking at a collaboration with Boardmasters, asking for Newquay Town Council to match fund 2,000 with BID annually for bunting, and plus 400 for banner printing. So we've actually just an hour or two ago approved, what was it, 2,000 plus a lot more, sorry, on the hanging baskets. So that's on my mind when I look at this, Councillor Creek.
Do we not have a budget line for bunting? No, we did at one point.
You did, but you took it out.
Oh, we took it out, did we? Ah, right. Okay, fair enough. Sharp then.
And
We took it out. I mean, the big question, I mean, my initial reaction is they didn't support our baskets, so why should we support their bunting? But that's been childish. Minor concern would be we've done bunting before, and when, I mean, for one, where are they going to hang it? Because we've got the catenaries, haven't we, that run up and down the main street. So if they're going to hang bunting, they're going to have to hang it either across the street, which is a possibility, but they're going to be using our infrastructure if they're going to hang bunting. Have we had any approach to say, can we use your infrastructure or can we put it on?
Yeah, verbally. I mean, I've always stressed this to Mark that if he wants to use or install bunting and use our catenaries, then he would need to get permission from us to do that. I did make him aware, and I think I made committee aware as well during the storms, that we've also had damage to some of our infrastructure on Cliff Road, and they did highlight that some of our catenary wires will need looking into as well. So I've made him aware that it might not all be completely available now unless he's willing to put in some money to undertake any repairs.
Thank you. The other thing I would stress as well is we've ran bunting along the streets before and it's just not effective. You know, we used to have decorative white lights along. At night they were effective. When you run bunting along the catenaries, it just gets lost. So the only effective bunting in any town I've ever seen has gone across the road. So I would be wanting to know if that's the kind of impact they're looking at. If they're just going to run it along the catenaries, I don't think it had the impact. We've done it a couple of years and I didn't think it was impressive. I'd sooner have more hanging baskets, if I'm honest.
Craig.
Yeah, so just to come back on that point, I do remember vaguely having a conversation with Mark about bunting and him going, look at what they've got in Falmouth, and he goes across the street and they have these big banners and it's sort of ringing a bell now. So I suspect that that's what he's probably talking about. But I mean, that's a chunk of cash after he's just withdrawn that money, and we give him lots of free use of the other parts of the town that we charge everyone else.
Have a budget line for this sitting around, do we?
No, and the only budget line that I don't think you could really apply to this, but the lighting budget is town decoration, but I would advise against using that given the unknowns of the damage to the infrastructure. So, and I have also made Mark aware of that you're very unlikely to get anything from our lighting budget. So in terms of budget, I couldn't immediately identify one here and now.
I would say that we go back to Mark and say, you know, thank you, but no thank you. We're happy for them to use our infrastructure, and that would be our contribution. I mean, 2,000 annually, and for what's the banner printing?
My understanding is that he also wants, so where we would normally have Christmas lights across the street, he wants to essentially use that same infrastructure for banners. So I think he was looking at either 7 to 9. So on each one, I think there's at least 9 throughout from East Street to 4th Street. So I think that's where he was looking at having banners as well for, well.
Shall I go away and have a conversation with Mark and then come back in next month's meeting and we'll try and flesh it out a little bit more, because I'm not sure that there's enough detail here for us to really make a decision on, to be honest. I'm happy to take it away.
We don't have a budget line
And to be
for
fair,
it.
Falmouth's Main Street is very different to ours. I've seen the bunting down there. It is lovely. All the colours are fab, but they're very sort of sheltered.
And Councillor Creek, just to say that we did approve the hanging baskets just before, so it's not that we're not sort of supporting in any way, we absolutely are, but it's whether this one is a match. And it's slightly frustrating timing that a few months ago this committee spent hours and hours going line by line through the budget. Would have been better to know back then. I mean, my other point I would raise is, if I don't know if this is appropriate for him to ask Kieran to work on, is there a grant around for town regeneration, that sort of thing, because there is funding for town regeneration, but that we're not the main source for that. So that's our grants officer. Sorry. So thank you, Joe. Councillor Creek's going to take it, and we'll hear in the next meeting. Thanks.
Sorry, I'm just conscious of where we are on the agenda, and we haven't actually spoken about town rangers. Can I? What would it come under?
Most appropriate would be environment, and raising that back up.
Can we raise that back up then? Does that need a proposal?
Yes, thank you. I'll second that. Yeah.
I'll propose.
Yeah.
Second.
And so we're raising the environment back up. Thank you. All in favour? Great. We've just voted that. So on the rangers, thank you.
So obviously on the town ranger issue, we do have. So my understanding is we haven't actually spent the enforcement budget for this year, or most of the enforcement budget for this year, and it is ongoing into next year. When I spoke to Andy, so can I propose then, given that we obviously are aware of the rangers that the bid team have used, the agency guys, and that they are in fact accredited to, and I can't remember the accreditation, but essentially they can give out fines, can't they? That we task the office to utilise the budget that we haven't spent for the rangers this year to begin instructing them to cover the town on, I don't know what you would recommend as I mean, full-time will probably be very expensive given that they're agency, but I think we need to probably have a bit of a quick hard hit at it, don't we, in terms of presence, getting some fines out there, getting it known that we're fining again, and putting these people off not clearing up. I think Councillor Hannan wants to come in now.
It's only to check. Can we do that, or does it have to be a recommendation? It's not our budget, is it? It's employment, it's staffing. So I fully support that if we've got an unused staffing budget for 2 enforcement officers, we should be making a recommendation to the relevant committee, which is GNR, to basically say, can we buy that across and use it for, and get it to the next GNR. We can't do it as a committee.
But just on the logistics of, should we just do delegated authority to look at an appropriate amount of coverage, or do you need a specific? I feel like we've not got a great deal of time to spend loads of time talking about.
Sorry, it would be good if we as a committee task the office from the committee to put together, so that when it goes to GNR, it's not just via it. It's you've done some work and you know how many it will buy, and it's more likely then to go through GNR smoothly.
Sorry.
And as part of that work, does the office consider how information was flowed back to the council and the committee about the success or otherwise of how this money is being spent, and the scrutiny of the operation?
Fantastic point. So So do you need, you can just take it to, do you need us to?
If you can agree to give the office or the steer essentially to work up essentially a business case for what we want the town rangers to do, what they
Great.
target, their kind of general operation.
Right.
And then when that's ready, that's circulated to GNR.
Okay.
GNR may need to make that decision by email depending on this committee cycles. but
Thank you.
That's just something that needs to be aware
So,
of.
presuming that means that we sort of make sure that that would mean they visit Porth and Barrowfields and Polwheel, then yes, I'm happy to propose that we give you that steer.
Yeah.
I thought that was it, but.
Well, I was just going to give you the words, if that's
Okay.
helpful. So just propose to recommend to GNR that the office explore all options for enforcement coverage for the next, should we say, well, where are we now, February? So we're probably talking 6 months realistically, aren't we?
Sorry, Councillor Creek, to butt in, but that might delay it again because then your GNR are then going to have to recommend that we can steer the office to do all the work and make a recommendation to GNR so that when it goes to GNR, it's literally, we're recommending as a committee that we move that budget to, and this is what we're going to spend it on at that point, and then it can happen straight away.
Recommending to the office to prepare a recommendation to GNR. Thank you. Great. So I'm proposing that, and it's seconded by Councillor Creek, and we've all supported that. Thank you very much. Okay. Review of income opportunities. We did have a review of that earlier. Yeah. Okay. And the correspondence was the one we just reviewed on bunting and governance and accountability. Terms of reference. We don't need to make any changes to our terms of reference right now. Public bodies. Sorry? Okay, my apologies. We're going into the private session of the meeting where we need to discuss sensitive matters, but not many, fortunately. Thank you very much for attending. Yeah, really.